Are you lost in the chaotic whirlwind of day-to-day busyness? Do you yearn for a deeper sense of meaning and purpose in your life? Welcome to Be You, Your Story, Your Purpose, the podcast dedicated to empowering women on their journey of self-discovery and finding their true purpose through their own story. I'm your host, Brenda Simmons. Welcome, my friends, to the podcast. Today, my guest is Heidi Arave, and she is the co-founder of Nicholas Fern, which is a 20-year-old personalized printed storybook company. Her dream is to allow people to record their important family stories and publish them in hardbound storybooks. And I just got to tell you, they have been around so long. It was before like chat books and these guys were like the original people who did that. It's so cool. Heidi's driving force for doing this is her love and her admiration for her grandparents. She wants to ensure that her children can have that opportunity to get to know the great grandparents that they never actually met. Nicholas Fern was created to help others celebrate and honor parents and grandparents by providing them with opportunities to leave a legacy and provide hope to future generations. In the process, families have been connected, life lessons have been taught, and the confidence of all who read their stories has increased. Welcome, Heidi, to the podcast. I'm so glad that you can be here today.
Thanks, Brenda. I appreciate you having me on the show.
So you have been doing this for a really long time, as I mentioned, like one of the first ones out there. So tell us how this all got started. I think I love the name Nicholas Fern, and I know there's a story behind that. So if you would share that with us too, that'd be great.
Sure. So about 20 years ago, I had graduated from college and I was working at an assisted living center as the activity director. And a group of ladies contacted me and they had started this concept of storybooking. And like you said, there was no one-off printing that didn't exist. And they had these little hardbound books. They were like children's stories. And they said, can we come and show this to the residents and show them how they can write their life stories? And I was fascinated. I'm like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. I was a scrapbooker. I've always loved photos. And so I said, sure, come. Let's tell the residents that they can, write their life stories. And it was a total foreign concept to all of the elderly, and they didn't understand that this was even, feasible. And so from that, I eventually quit working at the assisted living center, started working with these ladies, and really started piloting this concept of storybooking. And in that process, there was a lady that lived at the center, and her name was Karma. And she was the sweetest lady. She'd been widowed for several years. And I said, Karma, let's write your story. And she said, no, nobody would want to read it. I haven't done anything. And I said, sure you have. You're amazing. And she just kept refusing. And so I asked her daughter, and I said, will you help me write your mom's story? And so she agreed, and we sat down and we put together this little simple storybook. And the day I took that to her, she was sitting by herself in her little studio apartment. And I sat down next to her and she opened it up and she looked at the cover and she said, I used to look like that. So I can never tell this story without crying because it still touches me. And I read every page to her. And with every page, it was like a new part of her life just literally came back to her. And she said things like, I did go there and I remember that. And we used to do that. And her confidence increased. She remembered who she was. And it was magical. It was the coolest thing. And then the next day, her daughter called me and said, Karma wants a copy of that book for all of her grandkids. She wants them to know that grandma, not the one they come visit, that sometimes can't remember their names, can't really see anymore, struggles to walk, and all of those things. So from that moment, it's been 23 years now. It was like this burning inside me of every person deserves that, to have that moment before they die, to feel like they mattered, right? That what they did in this life, they contributed, they loved, they had trials and all these things, but it matters. And passing that on to your children is important. In 20 years, well, even last year, I went and found Karma's daughter, and I said, hey, I haven't seen you in forever, just wanted to stop by and see how you were. And the first thing out of her mouth was, I'm so grateful you did that book for Mother. That literally gave her life back. Her children and grandchildren that never met her know her. Like they read her book all the time and they know her and love her. And so that was huge for me to see that even 20 years past, right? vision and love of connecting her posterity to her goodness, to her good soul, to the things that were important to her is being passed on long after she's passed away. And so from that, our company has changed names, and we had an online platform for a while where we taught people to do it themselves. And then just in 2022, me and my partner Candy May started Nicholas Fern, where we're doing books intentionally for people. We are doing it. We're not just saying, oh, here's the way to do it. We literally go in, we get the photos, we ask the questions, we write the story, because we found over all these years, people don't do it. They have the best of intentions, everybody wants to do it, and it just keeps getting bumped to the back burner, and then it's too late. And so Nicholas Fern, Nicholas is Candy's grandfather, who the very first storybook was written about, and Fern is my grandmother, who I did my first storybook about. And we didn't have children at the time, like you said, and we wanted our children to know and love our grandparents the way that we did. And so that's where Nicholas Fern originated and how it all kind of came to be.
That's such a beautiful story. And to have, I mean, that's quite a legacy in a company to be able to say, we have helped families know their stories for over 20 years. That's really, really amazing. So I want to get into kind of the mechanics of it. And then because I think it's important to understand what exactly you do, how you put it together. But then really what I want to get into more is the impact that it's having. Because you mentioned that with Karma, like what a touching story. I love that story. That's just absolutely beautiful. And I'm sure you've got many more stories like that as well. So, and I'd love to know at a deeper level, what's the impact that you're seeing, not only in, the people that you do this for, but their families and even you too. So let's go into like what is it that you do? Like, how are you putting these all together and what kind of services do you provide?
Okay, well, we do a couple different things. We have a full service, kind of a high end for people who want a more custom, lengthier story. And we go and we interview with our bigger packages. We film them telling different stories, and we put those stories in the back of the book as QR codes. So you've got photos, you've got story, you've got actual video and audio, so that it encompasses all of that. And those books are high end, like I said, and the most popular one we have is our do-it-yourself full service, which is um, kind of a funny name. But what we found is we thought, okay, we're going to do a DIY option. It's online, and again, nobody does it right because they're busy. But if we add on a service and say we'll do it for you, it's still the simple version. So it's 12 questions, and we can do it virtually or in person, and we ask the 12 questions. And then we type up those into their own little individual standalone paragraphs. And then we digitize photos that go along with each paragraph. So the books are just simple 8x8 books with the photo and the story. And Candy, my partner, she has a master's degree in education and story. And what she found when she was doing all of her studies was children learn best through story. And so that's why they're short on purpose. They're intentionally little so that they can be a bedtime story. So the big, huge, thick books, if people have done those, that is amazing and a huge task and a treasure for every family. However, that's not going to touch the young kids. That's not going to touch the teenagers, right? But these little short books will, because they can pick it up while they're sitting, on the couch at grandpa's house, thumb through, find a picture that interests them, read the short little piece, and then they've got a connection of like, oh, wow, I didn't know that happened. And then it intrigues them to go find the bigger books, right? They want to know more. They get hungry for those stories of what grandpa's life was like. And then they go find the bigger books and keep learning about their grandparent.
So I totally missed that when you were first showing those to me. I didn't realize that these were geared towards children as more like a bedtime storybook. What a
Mhm.
beautiful concept. I love that. And if you're listening to this, go and check out the video on YouTube because she has shown us a little bit about what they look like. Can you give us an example? Like open up that book that you were looking at and maybe read something for us so that we get a feel for what it looks like?
Okay, so one of the things that we ask intentionally, we did everything is with purpose, each question, but the one of my favorite questions is sorry, no, Craig, what is one of the hardest trials that you've been through? And how did you get through that? And the purpose behind that is knowing that their grandchildren, right, and their children are going to face a lot of hard things. And research shows that when you know your family stories, that gives you strength, more confidence, you know you belong to something bigger. And with that, you have the sense of grandpa did something really hard. I can get through this, right? I come from a line of people who have done hard things. And it's kind of a roadmap where they give advice of like, this is how I got through it. And so as we're facing our trials and our children are facing trials, we can say, this is what grandpa had to say about that, right? He's lived through that. He's done that. So that's just the page I opened up to. The hardest trial I've been through is losing my sweetheart Doris. Losing her was heartbreaking. We had 58 wonderful years together. Family support and my wonderful kids have helped me through it. From my life experiences, I have learned to work hard and be positive. Don't get discouraged. Associate with good people. Get out and do things. Don't be a recluse and feel sorry for yourself. Get to know people. So anyways, that's one. We always ask what advice you have for your posterity and how they want to be remembered. And so that advice can be passed on. And then we put that advice in a keychain locket with a QR code. So once grandma and grandpa are gone and you no longer get to hear that voice and it's the final, like, oh, I wish I could just hear their voice one more time, right? Like if I could have my, sorry,
I'm totally bawling too. Like this is
sorry,
so tender.
right? Like if you could hear your
Yeah.
grandma's voice one more time or your parents' voice, if you don't have your parents here, I'm lucky and still have both parents. But how awesome would it be on a hard day or even on a day where you're like, I just really miss grandma to be able to see your keychain and remember, oh yeah, scan it. And there pops grandma's telling you what's important. Don't get discouraged. Keep your head up. You know, all of those things that can keep us knowing that we've got people cheering for us on the other side, that people love us. They've been through hard things. We can get through hard things. And so this is a fun piece as well. With our packages, we do a book and a keychain.
And the
So,
keychain has the QR code on one side and
and
the
a
image
photo.
and a photo on the other side. That's
Mhm.
so pretty. I love that. That's wonderful. And then you said you have 12 questions that you ask?
Yeah, so there's 12 questions and it's more like 12 themes because each question has more than one question, right? So
Okay.
like the first question is when were you born? What are your parents' names? What did they do for work when you were little? What are your grandparents' names? So we're going back a generation and asking, what do you remember about them? Did you ever get to meet them? What were they like? And so their great grandkids are now able to read not only about a great grandfather, but now a great great grandfather, right? Because
Right.
we're going back a generation. So we do that and then it just goes through key points. It's kind of like the Reader's Digest version, right? What are the key points of your life that made you who you are? And we ask them, what are three words that describe you? If you had
Hmm.
to just pick three words. And then from those three words, we can help them see, okay, you chose patriotic. What in your life, what experiences have you had that made you patriotic, right? And usually they were a veteran or their father was, or there's some story behind each of those words that made them who they are. So we use that to help kind of pull out the stories that created the person that they are today.
Gosh, that's beautiful. I love that. So so people can order this and then you ask the questions and you do like a Zoom call if you can't do it in person.
Yeah, so we do Zoom or we do over the phone. So it depends on the individual. If the person's living by themselves and aren't computer savvy and can't figure out the computer, then we can just do an audio. We just call them on the phone
Hmm.
and we can gather the story that way. And then for the pictures, we do need help, like a family member will email us the pictures. Um, or if they, yeah, generally that way, or they sometimes will mail physical copies of the photos to us as well. So they can do either way.
I love that. If somebody wants just part, like if they just want the locket, is that possible? Because
Mhm.
I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what a great like stocking stuffer.
Yeah.
Like
So
that would
they'll,
be amazing.
Yeah, those are all on our website and you can just go on. And again, so we have the DIY. You can go on, you can record your own message of whatever you want, upload the photo that you want to go with it, and we'll create the lockets and mail them to you. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be, a grandma or grandpa's advice. We could do it and give advice for our children, right? Or you could call grandma on the phone and be like, hey, what advice do you have? Or call me back and leave a voice message with the advice you have. And then you could use that as the audio. So there's lots of ways that you can do it, and you can, yeah, totally do it yourself, upload it on the site, and then you get the product. And then the same with the book. You can, the 12 questions are there, tells you exactly how to do everything, and then you just upload everything to us, and then we make the book. So you can do it yourself if you want. More
That's
than welcome.
wonderful. So, what has it been like for you to share these books with your children?
It is amazing because even last night I was working on one, and my kids love it that, I'll show them a picture. I'm like, look how cute this little girl is. And they're like, oh, she's just precious, right? Or I'll share, can you believe that this happened, that so and so, and I'll share their trial. And they just are like, oh my gosh, it makes them grateful for the things that, we may think that what we're going through is hard and a challenge. But then when I share what other people have been through, then they realize, oh my goodness, wow, that must have been so hard. I'm grateful that I have, my family or kids that,
Yeah, it's a
love
new
support.
perspective, right?
Total new perspective. Yeah, and my daughter who's now 12, I started taking her when she was 4. She wasn't even in school yet, and I would take her with me, and it was the cutest because the elderly love little kids, right? So it was just the best of both worlds because they loved to see her and she loved to see them, and she would sit on the couch and look at books while I would, talk with the people, and she became just as good friends with them as I did, and so she's got all these, grandmas and grandpas everywhere, and it's magical, that connection between the young kids and the elderly. And I've even had my kids do it. My daughter now is a senior and she's starting to help with the interview process because it's so great. Like you said, perspective, right? They don't know world like the world without internet. They don't know what the world was
Right.
like before everybody was watching TV or staring at a screen 24 hours a day. Um, a lot of this, well, that generation's slowly passing, but a lot of the 90-year-olds, they didn't even have electricity, right? Like they didn't have running water. And so the things that they read in a history book, they're learning live from somebody who lived through it, right? These people all remember when John F. Kennedy was shot. They remember when the war ended. Some of them remember when the war started and what
Mhm.
all of that looked like. And like they lived through it. It's so cool to hear firsthand what it was like for them living through all of that stuff. So,
And I remember when I was a kid, like that's what I wanted to know the most was, what was it like when you were a kid? Or, not just to my parents, but to my grandparents. And I loved, loved, loved being able to sit down with them and just have them tell me stories. And I think you're right. I mean, it's so important to preserve those stories. So what do you think? Like I mean, obviously you're passionate about this, but what is the value, not just to the family, but to the world at large of preserving these stories?
well, for sure, I mean, the generation now that is dying are the World War II vets, right? The people who lived through the Depression, people who've been through really hard times and they know truth, right? They have values, they have standards. They grew up in a world that was pretty solid as far as morals, values. And in today's world, it's a crazy mess, right? Like, who knows what truth is? Our kids are being taught all kinds of things across the board. And for to get these stories of the elderly who are solid, who are true heroes, right? People who have made America what it is today because of the hard work that they've put in, their honesty, their efforts. It gives our children positive role models and true heroes to look at of like, wow, grandpa was honest, even though, maybe he lost out on making more money, but he was honest. Like that says more than a lot of things, right? Or their faith, like things were hard, but they always turned to God. It can help strengthen our children's faith in something bigger, something more powerful than them, and help them see that there is more than just them. Sometimes our kids get, they're this way, they're a little self-centered, and all they see is it's me, 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 me. And when we look outside ourselves and we can see there's a much bigger picture, And there's a whole world of people who have been here, who have done all the things, lived through a whole different life than what you guys have, but they know things, right? They've already paved the way. They know the secret steps, if you will. They know the things that will help bring happiness. And what I think is so intriguing is I've done hundreds of these, right? And not one person in their advice has said, work as hard as you can, get to the top of your company, make sure you make a lot of money. It has never once, nobody once has said anything about making money. It has always been about family, being honest, right? Loving God, doing those things that really matter. And for me, that says a lot, right? In the world, we're not taught that. We're not taught that, and our kids aren't taught that. But people who have been through life and they have seen both sides, they know where the true happiness and joy comes. And it's not from chasing the money. It's not from trying to step on people to get to the top. It's truly from loving others and building relationships. And so that to me has been super powerful to watch and be like, wow, like across the board, hands down, that's the advice of every person, regardless if they were super successful or barely got by.
So why don't you think people take the time to do it more? Because you've mentioned before how, other things get in the way and whatnot. Like what do you think is the real cause of why we don't? I mean, and I admit I am not a scrapbooker. I take
Mhm.
lots of pictures and they're organized by year and that's it. But so
Yep.
why? And so I know a little bit about my own why I don't do it, but what have you learned about that?
Well, a couple things. One, it's overwhelming,
Yeah.
completely overwhelming, right? If I said, Brenda, go write your life story and write that's only 50 years to write, but you're still like, I don't even know where to
Right.
start. It's overwhelming.
Yeah.
There's so much. I don't even know what to include, what not to include. And then, so these people think they're 90, like one of our ladies is 105 that we just interviewed,
Oh
right?
my goodness.
Like
Wow.
that's a lot. That's a lot. And so
Yeah.
it's so overwhelming that it's paralyzing. And so they just stop because they don't even know what to do. So, and then the other one is just because people think I have more time. There's
Yeah.
more time. I don't have to do that now. I'm busy and all these other priorities are taking place. Like, oh, I've got to do this and I'll do that tomorrow. And because we never think the day's going to come when they're actually going to leave, right? We
Yeah.
know like, oh yeah, they're going to pass away eventually, but it's in reality, it's just, oh, it's not going to be tomorrow. And so we just keep putting it off, thinking that we can wait, and then it's too late, right? So the thing that's unique about ours is that I've done it long enough and reworked the questions. Like I started with 68 questions, right? And it
Wow.
took about 6 months to interview the first person. And it was glorious. Like we had the best time. I became super great friends with her. And my little Livy would come and sit with her husband and they would play dolls. And I would sit and work through the questions with her. And people were passing away at this assisted living center. And it was like giving me this anxious feeling of like, this is too long. Like I can't, like there's people's stories that I need to get. And so from that, I condensed it down shorter and then I condensed it down shorter. And so kind of whittled it down to where it's manageable. It's still, we spend enough time with the residents that we create friendships. They feel seen and validated, right? Somebody's showing up and helping them see that their life mattered. And then we're giving them a tangible product so that when we leave, they still have something to know that they matter, right? So even though they're alone, they may not have a lot of visitors. Instead of just watching TV all day, they now have their book. So instead of memories being scattered everywhere and photos everywhere, everything is created into one space, a tangible, concise product that they can read through and relive their life over and over every day if they want, right? And so the simplicity of it, I think is part of the magic of what we do is because it is simple and it can get completed. It's not this never ending, oh, I want to add more. We need to add more. We add the most important pieces. And then we tell them, if you want to add more, you can just start, writing or typing on a computer or audio talk into a voice recorder, more stories. But we at least get the basic key points done. So it's done and ready to be passed on. And all the books, they can make copies. It's a great gift that they can give to grandkids for Christmas or their birthdays. So it's something that they feel like they have control of. Whereas normally at that age, they feel like nothing's in their control, right? They can't drive anymore. Most of them
Right.
don't even get to pick what they eat because they live at a center. Their health is going down the tube, so they can't even hardly walk, or their eyesight's going, their hearing's going. And with this, we give them full control and say, you're in control, right? What legacy do you want to leave? You can intentionally pick how you want to be remembered. You can intentionally choose to share what you've learned, and that way your influence will outlive you long past when you're gone, right? So even though you think you have no purpose, you're like most of them say, why am I still here? I don't even know why I'm still here. Like, I'm ready to go. Why am I still here? We tell them, right? You have a much bigger impact than you know. You have a purpose to share with your grandkids what you learn that matters most and shape generations that will never even meet you. And so we're able to empower these sweet people who really feel like they've been forgotten, nobody cares, and they literally have no purpose. And to see them go from first visit of like, I don't want to do this, and are you sure we have to do this, right? By the end of the visit, they're kind of warming up to it. Second visit, they're like, oh, I found this picture and I want to tell you about this story. They literally come to life. Like they're so excited to share about their life. And it's really magical, the whole process as it all transforms.
So, as you have described what it's like going in and speaking with these people, it has dawned on me, there's multiple ways to leave this earth, right? I mean, you can pass away, but you also can leave it mentally, or you can leave it if you don't feel like you have a purpose, and you leave it emotionally. And so have you found then that as you give back these books, like what have you found that people have found their lives again?
Oh, definitely. It's fun to watch them start living again, in a sense, right? We had one gentleman, he was starting to lose his eyesight, and so he would eat at the same table every single day with the same three ladies, right? Never varied, never talked to anybody else, straight to lunch to that table and back. And we did his book and we gave it to him, and he had this huge magnifying glass and he's looking at it, and he was like, and he loved horses, right? He's on a horse on the front cover, and his first words were, "Who's that good looking guy?" Right? Thrilled, like so
Wow,
happy.
yeah.
And he's looking through it. And then from then on out, he's out roaming the halls. He's sitting at different people's tables. He's talking to people he hadn't talked to before. Um, just things like that, right? Where they go from, it's almost like they revert back to junior high a little bit when they move into these assisted living centers, right? Because they have to start all over again. They have no friends, and they have
Mhm.
to decide, okay, like, do I dare just go introduce myself and sit at this table with people that I don't know? And who do I want to be friends with? And this clique's already over there. And so it's this kind of awkwardness, even though you think you don't have to do that again, but you're starting all over again, right? And
Right.
so it gives them this confidence of, instead of showing up as, oh, I'm the man who can't see and I have a walker too. No, I'm that guy that rode the horse, right? Like I had this awesome life and I can talk to people, right? I am confident. I have done things. So that's really, really cool to see how they remember, right? They remember who they were.
But it might even be like an icebreaker. Like, hey,
Oh,
check
yeah.
this out, right?
Oh, and they do that too. Yeah. Yeah. I've given them books before, and I gave one to a lady and it was lunchtime. And so she wanted to bring it to the table, and she showed all the ladies at the table. She was so proud of it. And they're like, well, who is this? She's like, well, that's me. And that's my husband. And just go. So it is very, very powerful to have a tangible thing. It gives them value. It helps them see that they matter. And then other people, then yeah, starts conversation. They start asking questions. And then everybody can start seeing each other as who they are, right? Not, oh, that's the old lady that falls twice a week and she's always blocking the halls, right? It's not, we're not seeing them as their old disabilities that we have. We're like seeing them through this lens of, this is the young mom, the young girl that literally sang with Frank Sinatra, right? Like we've interviewed people who have done that. So people have done huge things in their life that get buried, that get forgotten, that nobody would ever know about if somebody doesn't take the time to just sit and be like, hey, tell me about a time, in college that you loved, or tell me about whatever. And so it gives them a chance to really be heard instead of just being forgotten.
And what has it done for the different, like we've talked about the children and we've talked about those being interviewed. How about those in the middle? What has this done for that group?
Oh, it's also magical. It's really amazing how magical it works for all three. So we that go out and do the interviews, we're called life story advocates. And then we have teams of volunteers that also do it. But the ones who have been trained and certified are called advocates. And pretty much every time without fail, you go and do an interview and you leave, and it's like you've just gone through I don't want to say a therapy session, but whatever is bothering you, or if you've got an issue or you're struggling with a roommate or something with your husband's not right, or one of your kids is just like, oh, you just don't know what to do with them, right? As you talk to them and they share their experiences, they say something, and I'm like, yep, that's exactly what I needed to hear. That's what I need to do, go back and do with my child. And it happens repeatedly over and over. And every time people do interviews, they'll call me and be like, oh my gosh, Heidi, I was struggling with this with my husband. And the guy was interviewing, he said this about his wife. And oh my gosh, it was just exactly what I needed. And it happens repeatedly every time. And so they are blessing us just as much as we are blessing them. It's this total reciprocal thing that's just amazing. It's pretty cool.
And they probably don't even realize that.
Oh, no, they don't realize it at all.
Hmm.
No.
It makes me
They're-
think, man, especially as you get into your 90s and so and society kind of forgets that age, right?
Mhm,
Because they do go into the homes and you just don't really see them and they're not as connected and really it reflects poorly on society, doesn't it?
mhm,
And how wonderful that we've got this way to bring that out. And I have you ever seen the videos of the preschools that are in assisted living
mhm,
homes? Like and it just reminds me of, one of my very, very firm beliefs is that the more you get to know somebody, the more you're going to be able to love them. But it takes making the time to really get to know them. And it's cool because I see this happening as you are working this on so many different levels. So that's really fascinating. So tell me what is something you have learned about yourself as you have gone through this?
Well, one of the things, because I've been trying to I'm thinking on this, and I think the part that I love the most is it's so fun every single time, right? Nothing's the same, even though it's the same process behind every door, like it's a complete stranger, right? And then you leave best friends. Like there's your heart just keeps expanding and expanding for these people. And then taking their information that's just chaos, like we talked about before, right? We've got photos, we've got story, and creating it into a tangible product for that, like is magical for me. I love that creation part of being able to take just their chaotic stuff from all over and making something that they have that they can hold, that they can remember, that they matter. And so for me, I think that's what I've learned most is that, I mean, after 20 years, I'm still just as excited to go to the next story as I was to do Karma's story, right? And it's just, and every time I come home and I'm like, can't wait to tell my kids about this new person that I just met and what they did and something amazing they did or something super hard they did. So that's probably what I've learned the most. And I've learned that um, trials that we go through now that seem like it's the end of the world and like it's just we're never going to get through it. Someday we're going to not even think of it as a trial, right? I can't tell you how many people I've interviewed and be like, "What's your hardest trial?" And they're like, "I don't think I don't think I've had any." And she's just told me that she's buried two husbands and a son, like really hard things, and she doesn't even view those as a trial, right? Because she's been able to get past those and learn and grow from those. And so that has been really big for me to realize to put things in perspective, right? I've learned that it's not just right here tunnel vision for me either. Like everything comes in a season and there's a different perspective once you get, you know, to be in your 80s, 90s and look back and be like, oh, maybe that wasn't this, as big of a deal as I thought it was. So
That's cool. Do you ever look at these people and go, or after you're interviewing somebody, go, oh, I wish I could be like them?
oh, all the time. Yeah. They all have these characteristics of, I mean, there's good in every person, right? And that's,
Hmm.
I mean, you know that regardless of what they've done or haven't done, at the heart of every person is goodness. And with each of these people, I recognize that, right? They want to show up. They want to serve. They love their family. They want to make good choices. They want to contribute. And I completely agree. Once you know somebody's story, I would say once you know, you don't know somebody's story till you know their heart, right? You don't know somebody. You can't really pass judgment or think you know somebody until you've sat down and been like, okay, tell me your story. Like, where did you come from and how did you get here? And once you've done that, like all judgment's gone and you realize, oh my gosh, you've got this love for this person that you're like, how did you make it through that? And there's this empathy and you realize that they're just a person just like you, right? They have feelings. Maybe they took the wrong path, maybe they've come back, whatever it is, but genuinely, these are good people to the core. They might be a little grumpy, they might have, rough around the edges. But once you chisel that off and you get down to the heart of who they are, there's goodness in everyone.
Well, and sometimes I like I like approaching those that are a little bit hardened because I like to see if I can find the soft inner side,
Mhm.
right? I kind of think of it as a challenge, and it's so fun. It's so fun when you get that and you're like, that there you are. I see you
Yep.
now. Yeah.
Yep. One of the first ones that I did that was very challenging like that, the assisted living center said, okay, we want you to go do this gentleman and he's a little rough. He's, so
Mhm.
don't be scared of him. And this was at the time when my 4-year-old daughter was coming with me, and it was perfect because he just melted when she came in the room, right? So he
Oh,
was
yeah.
always just so kind and so great with me. And then we found like that sweet spot, right? Like he came across as maybe this mean, you know, chiseled, not so kind man. But once you got a little kid in front of him and again,
Yeah.
he melted and he was like, oh, kindness, goodness. And he was a veteran and he was on a ship that got hit by another ship and the ship like literally got broken half and sunk and he survived like
Oh my
incredible,
word.
yeah, incredible stories of people. So, I mean, and so you think he's been through a lot, right? A lot of these people have been through really hard things and seen really hard things and maybe are still carrying those hard things. And that's maybe why they come across the way they do. But when you take the time to dig down, you can always find the goodness.
Yeah. I like making them laugh too.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the best. You just see them giggle. It's so much fun. I love that. Oh, so good. Okay, so I want to, I don't know, I know my time is running out quickly, but I want you to share with us because you've got like different programs. Like obviously you've talked about different stuff, but you've got this one
Mhm.
program where somebody can sponsor a senior. And so I want to give you an opportunity to share about that. Can you tell us a little
Okay.
bit more about that?
Yeah, perfect. So we've been doing this for years, like I said, and we've been trying to figure out what's the right way because to approach somebody and be like, hey, we want to tell your story, but you have to pay for it, that doesn't really feel
Mhm.
right because we want to honor you. We want you to feel special. And so what we've started doing is we're getting donations from the community, from businesses, and they will pay for the book and the locket. And some of them want to be anonymous. Some of them, we can tell them who it is. And so we go in and we say, you've been selected to have your life story written, which then they even feel, I was selected. What have
Somebody
I
loves
done?
me, right?
Yeah. So then they feel, oh my gosh, somebody cares about me. So they are
Yeah.
one, somebody's thinking about me, somebody cares about me. So that already boosts their confidence and helps them feel important. And then we put on the back of the book that company who sponsored them. So it helps with that company with advertising. They can get a tax donation for it. So it helps the company. And then the company also gets to give back to the community. So it's a win-win that way. And then the other way is it's GoFundMe, but it's called the Give Butter. So if you wanted to do this for your grandparents or your parents, and you want to split the cost with all your siblings, or maybe your neighbors want to go in, then we create a campaign and you can text that out to whoever you want, and they can donate however much they want towards the project. And then they could write a note too. So what I like to compare this to is when somebody dies, right? The whole neighborhood's like, hey, do you want to pitch in 20 bucks for flowers for, so and so? And then
Right.
everybody's like, oh, sure, yeah. And in my head, I'm like, why wait till they die? Like, why wait till somebody dies to let them know that you cared? So our model is show them now, right? Spend the 20 bucks for a book and write a message of why they matter and what you admire about them. And then when the book gets gifted to them, then they have the storybook plus all these little thank you cards of the people who donated, letting this person know why they're still alive so that they can see and feel that, oh my gosh, these people care about me. that they matter, right? So you can do it. That's the two ways that we do donations for the books. If somebody just wants to buy it all out, they can do that on the website as well. But the sponsoring we have found is really the secret sauce. That's the part that makes it roll because, again, it just magnifies the efforts of you matter, right? Like we see you, this company recognizes you, they think you matter and that you're worth saving your story and recording it. So those are the ways that we get sponsors and get the
I
stories
love
paid for.
that. That is awesome. So I know you mostly focus towards, senior citizens, but do you do books for other ages too, or other
Yes,
circumstances?
yes. So we just launched a Don't Wait series, and that is so for the elderly, it's called It's Time. Like it's time to do your story. Let's just get it done, right? And we found that the younger generation, they feel like, oh, I'm only 50. I don't need to do my story. I still have a long time to wait, right? But what we're finding is don't wait, right? So we just launched a Don't Wait series. It's a 9 module course online, and it will walk you through how to write your story. And this is geared specifically for like 45 to 60-ish first time grandparents, particularly, right? So if you are having your first grandchild, or maybe you've got young little grandkids, we want you to be intentional about the legacy you're leaving those little grandkids. And you can start today. You don't have to wait till you're 90 and then pass it on. And then we call you grandfluencers, right? Like, what do
Oh,
you
I
want your
love
grandkids
that.
to know?
Yeah.
What is important to you? And maybe they're getting it from their parents, maybe they're not, right? Maybe you live far away from your grandkids and you never get to see them. What are things that are dear to your heart that you would like to share with them? Tell them about when you were a kid, a funny story growing up, right? All of that, you create your own little book. And so we do have that new line for Don't Wait, young grandmothers, soon to be grandmothers, that they can start now passing on that legacy and being intentional of what they want their grandchildren to know about them and grow up reading about and knowing whatever's valuable and important to you.
And you even have a special for our listeners with that, right?
We do. Yep. So
Fantastic.
it's normally 179, and for your listeners, we have a special that it's $100 off, so it's just $79.
Wow.
And again, it's 9 modules. It'll teach you how to do your story, and it's very therapeutic as well. Like as you sit down and you really go through and pull out all the pieces that are most important, right? I think you'll find it very valuable in just the personal healing that you go through in writing your story and figuring out what you want to share. So it's been really fun to see that transform and see people in the younger age see the benefits of writing their stories as well.
I love that. I know that and it's interesting when I sit down and I write out a story or something like that, I know I'm forgetting details because it's been so long, and yet I'm like, oh, I gotta get this down, right? But still, how wonderful is it to have that written down like that? And how you're putting it together is just super, super cool. I love that. So what kind of words of wisdom do you have for people who are, maybe on the fence about this or even on the fence about what their own purpose is?
I would say if you're on the fence about writing either your story or a grandparent's story, I always go retro back and think, okay, if I could have my great grandpa or my great great grandma, right, that I read her stuff and heard the stories, like if I could have her tell me something, what would I want? Or if I could ask her one question, what would that be? And that inspires me to be like, I want to be that person. I want to write that so that my posterity has that. And so if you think you don't matter or you think you're not worth writing down, think how much you love learning about your own grandparents or your great grandparents or any part of your family that helps make you who you are. Those pieces help create and build confidence. I don't even know if I said this in the beginning, but it helps with you have less anxiety, less depression. It helps those who are reading those stories immensely. And so if you don't think you have a purpose, you do. People need to hear your story because you matter. Um, um, our friend Kim said this quote, and I think it's so powerful. She said, I don't care who it is or how ordinary a life was. Nobody wants their life to not have mattered, right? Nobody wants to not have mattered. And that's what I hope everybody realizes that you matter, regardless of how small or insignificant you may feel, you matter. And we want to help people recognize that and then pass on the important things from that person's life so that that impact can continue to go on for generations.
Well, really what you're doing is seeing people,
Hmm.
not just the person, but who they are divinely, and I love that. I love what you do. I think it's amazing. And I encourage everybody to contact Heidi. So, Heidi, where can people find you?
They can find us at nicholasfern.com. And that's Nicholas with a CHOLAS Fern.com. We're on Instagram and Facebook. So you can find us at any of those places. And the coupon, I'm not sure if I said this, is BU for the $100 off, BE lowercase YOU, capital, all one word, to get that 9-week or 9 modules. You can do it as fast or as slow as you want. Of course, to write your own story, to influence
Awesome.
your grandchildren.
So, I didn't quite get it. BU all caps or all lower
So
caps?
BE is lowercase
Okay. And
and
then YOU
YOU
is
is caps,
uppercase.
but it's
Okay.
all one word. Uh-huh.
Okay. Perfect. Awesome. Thank you so much, Heidi, for
You are
taking
so
the time
welcome.
out of your busy day to sit and talk with me. It's really a beautiful thing what you're doing because you're helping people know that they matter. And I mean, you've said that many times throughout this, and I can tell that that is your mission to help people know that they matter. And I love that.
Well, thank you for having me. I could talk all day about this. I love it. Like every person has an amazing story and it's just I love what I get to do. So thank you for letting me share. And hopefully I've inspired somebody to either write their own story or go ask a grandparent some stories or start finding out about the people in your life because it matters and they matter.
Absolutely. And honestly, it's one of the reasons why I started this podcast because I just felt like people need to know they matter. They need to know that their story has a purpose to it and that there is a reason why they are here, no matter how old they are. So we are totally on the same wavelength there.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
All right. Thank you so much, Heidi.
Okay, thanks, Brenda.
Okay, bye.
See ya.
Isn't she wonderful? And I think what Heidi is offering to the world is purely magical to help somebody to know that they matter and to show them in such a tangible way is it's a gift. And she definitely has it. And I love her passion for what she does. And I truly hope that if you are looking for a special way to help somebody know that they matter, that you will look up Heidi and her services and just so you can have a feel for how special that is too. And I truly hope that you can see in your life that there are reasons why things happen to us and that there is a purpose to it and maybe we can't see it right now. I mean that happens all the time to me. I go through something and I go, why do I have to go through this? It's so hard. It's so pointless. It will never end, and I know for me, I can get down in the dumps about things that happen, but when I look back and really pay attention to, the results of things that happen to me, then I can see that I do have a purpose and I do matter. And I love being able to share with other people the importance that they have to this world too. And you are important to this world and you matter and you have a purpose and your story is beautiful. And with that, I hope you have a wonderful week and I will see you next week. Take care.
Celebrate your dreams, let them take flight, for you are a star, shining bright in every step you take. Let your light glow, being you is the greatest way to grow.